Okay, let's get going. So here's who we have today. Steve Carter from Mitsubishi Motors, Canada. Chantel Broten, President and CEO of Kelley, and Kent Hatton, VP Sales and E-commerce at Bayer. Very exciting. Thanks for joining me today. What I like is that we're representing different sides of the marketing coin. So at Kelley, we're often an extension of our partners or clients' teams, and we're kind of that partner that can join into whatever skills and areas you need to help grow your team. That's where we step in. Steve has a combination of both in-house marketers and an outsourced team. Full transparency, Kelley works with Mitsubishi. So just so everybody knows. And then Kent has primarily in-house team at Bayer. So we've got some good perspectives to bring to the table. I think we account for over 100 marketers that we're responsible to help grow and be successful in their roles and achieve the goals that we set out. So I'm really excited to kind of have this conversation really about how do we help marketing leaders really help their teams win next year. And so we're going to look at some of the existing skills that from some research would say are most important. And then we're going to switch to looking at 2025. We're going to forward and expand our future a little bit. And what are the skills that we believe are needed and from the research that are going to be really important for marketers to have. So that's kind of setting up our conversation. And so let me share some of the research. So here's what LinkedIn says. And I think LinkedIn, being the biggest kind of professional online community, has a very reputable source to understand skills that are needed. So here's the list, and we're gonna throw them up on the screen so everybody can see them. We've got number one most valuable skill: copywriting, SEO, social media marketing, marketing automation and tech, audience building, project management, data analysis, and conversion rate optimization. So these really are the skills and the skill sets our marketers need today. So I guess my first question to our group is really, how do you feel about the list? Does it resonate? Like, anything stand out here that surprises you?
Building upon the importance of copywriting, I was happy I'm not surprised that it's on the list, but it's nice to see it not only on there, but in the number one position. Because I think the ability to write in real simplistic terms, and ultimately you're trying to form that connection with a consumer and relate a complex, deep connection to consumers in a very simplistic way. The ability to write in really good, deliberate, intentional terms is not easy. And to have that skill on your team and working with your agency partners, like if you look at the importance of writing a really clear and articulate brief to get the campaign started, to have the ability of a good copywriter is important. It's also important when concept writing, if you're going to do concept testing of either creative or product concept testing, a good copywriter can really get to the heart of an insight and unlock that. So I think it's a great skill to have. Conversely, one thing I was expecting to see on the list, but it's not there, is strategic planners. I know, like particularly in your agency partner, but who's kind of mining and has their antenna out to new consumer trends and lifestyle, think that can really help you connect on that. So I'm sure it's probably embedded in some of the other skills, but a good strategic planner is a great partner to have.
I would say the thing that I was surprised by, I agree that copywriting is important, and I think the fact that it's number one illustrates the fact that there are so many who are not comfortable writing today, and it is a really continues to be a critically important skill. I was surprised that data management, data analysis was number 7, because if I think of the continuous pain points that we at the agency have, it's all about data, analyzing data. It's all about pulling out insights. And while we like to think it's table stakes, I don't think it is. I think that many organizations are still really struggling with developing that capability in-house.
Yeah, I think, going back to Kent's point, right? I think ultimately, if you look at kind of the environment, everything is instant gratification. I don't have a long time or a lot of time to spend reading through a diatribe, right? So how do you simplify the communication? From an automotive perspective, we call it FAB, right? Feature, advantage, benefit. And if there's no benefit that's communicated to the consumer doesn't have the time to go through it and have them think about what the actual benefit is to them. It's our role from a marketing perspective to clearly communicate what that benefit is to the consumer, and that either resonates or with them or it doesn't. I think from a data perspective, I think fundamentally, yes, we always talk about, especially from a digital marketing perspective, we're always talking about data and conversions, et cetera, right? But you really need to begin to think about how do you bring all the data into one centralized location, whether it's all of your media data or your customer data, that becomes the launching off point to pull those insights out and begin to understand how your media works together with the creative. And then you can move forward to more of a multi-moment marketing perspective.
How do we feel about generalists? So some of these overlap. If we even copywriting, SEO, I think it's healthy to have some people who overlap many of these skill sets. How do we feel about the generalist marketer? I know when I'm interviewing someone and they say, "Oh yeah, I can do a bunch of everything. I can do I can cover all of this." I'm like, "Yeah, sure you can." I don't know how you feel about. Do you need that person on your team, or what are your thoughts?
I think you need to discern between being like really proficient in it and like, is that your natural tendency and strength that you're going to gravitate towards? Because I think to be a generalist, you kind of got that mile wide but very narrow understanding of field. So I think from my perspective, when we really need to specialize and build capability, you want to have a portfolio of skills across the department that you can kind of leverage upon, and to just have a full department of generalists probably doesn't make as much sense because they're not naturally proficient, trained, and they don't have that capability. So for me, I think it would be really good to have complementary skill sets that you can go to. And I mean, this is a great list, not only for today, but I think it will bring into tomorrow's skills as well.
Yeah, we tend to talk less about generalists and more about T-shaped marketers, as you know, right? That we encourage our team and most marketers today to build some deep functional expertise in a few disciplines, and then as you grow as a marketer, as you advance, as you become more senior and take on a broader role, you should broaden your understanding of a variety of disciplines and be able to speak to them all. It doesn't mean you'll be an expert in them, because one of the things we've learned is that there are no marketing unicorns. You cannot be a competent generalist in all things today. The world is just too fragmented. But being that T-shaped marketer where you have deep functional expertise in a few disciplines and then can speak to all of the disciplines and ultimately be that integrator, right? It's about how do we integrate all of these disciplines while you may not have the competencies to execute them.
Yeah, I think it's about balance, right? It's about balance in everything that we do, right? I love sports. I use a ton of sports analogies. And so you look at a soccer team, or as I would like to call it, football, but the real football. But you look at soccer, right? And you have specialists that are a goaltender, and that's typically what their role is. But you also have generalists on the team that they may play midfield, and they have the ability to play more offensive, more defensive, right? And so there are always, from a team perspective, there are those specialists that we need to, rely on. But you also have to have those generalists to be able, kind of to Chantel's point, to be able to see the bigger picture, right? If everybody is myopic in their point of view and only focused on the things that they have specialized in, you have to have somebody that has the bigger picture in mind. And that can't be one person, right? As a director of marketing, we need to rely on our teams to be able to work together and have that more holistic view. And so you have to have balance on your team of specialists and with specific skill sets, but also have the opportunity to look beyond that and work with one another and play off one another's skills to ultimately, when we bring something to market, it's as effective as we hope it will be.
I just kind of want to land this point that, like, if you're listening into this presentation, you see these 8 skills and you don't have them currently in your capability set, don't panic. I'm going to use this kind of a music analogy, even though I'm tone deaf. You used a sports analogy. So if you think of this as an orchestra and you're going to be the conductor, so you're going to lead this marketing agency into the future, it's highly unlikely that that conductor has capability to play every instrument that they're in front of. They have a general understanding of percussion, woodwinds and strings and that type of thing, but they've got a common language embedded in music. They know how to read sheet music. They know what good tone sounds like. They know rhythm and those type of things. So I think if you think of it that way, there is some capability that's common to each of these 8 skills that you can be upon. So that's kind of a way of looking at it.
Yeah, and the real skill as the leader is to create that clarity of vision, to continue align people against what are we trying to achieve, why are we doing it, and continue to bring all of that activity back to center.
So let's finish talking about today's skills with kind of a question about really the soft skill. So, these are some of the great skills we need to deliver the marketing, but what's the multiplier? So if you could take, one of your team members and give them a soft skill to focus on and work on, and it could be presentation skills or negotiation, whatever that looks like. Like what's the layer that somebody should add to make them that much better as a marketer?
From my perspective, it would be centered on curiosity. And I mean, we're all in creative fields as marketers, so continuous learning, continue to keep an open mind to what the next trends and consumer insights will be. So I think that's really important, and I think it's embedded and implied in this. And I think of those 8 skills we talked about, there's that element of, just continuing to continuously learn. The world is hyper evolving and moving really fast. So try to be nimble and agile and just continuously learn.
For me, it's all about team. That's the multiplier, is that you have all of these folks who know great things and work well as individual performers, and the opportunity, the soft skill is how can you then bring that team together so that, to your point, that orchestra is playing beautiful music.
Completely concur with Ken. Right? I think you have to have that type of mindset. The only other thing that I would suggest is encourage people to have a longer term view of things, right? It's not about successes in today's campaign or, next month's campaign, but it's about having that longer term vision and beginning to continue to learn from that and, build your skills in the long term, utilizing exactly what you said, Ken, the curiosity that what can I learn today and how can I use that to be more and more successful going forward?
And speaking of long term, so we're gonna shift to 2025. This is marketing research done by Marketo, and they've listed out, as a marketer, what do we believe are the 5 most important skill sets of the future? So the list: AI, machine learning, neuromarketing, buyer behavior, customer experience, UX, UI, experiential marketing, analytics, data, and insights. And one of my initial reaction, because in preparation to have this conversation, I'm like comparing these skill sets, I'm looking at the differences. And one of the things we talk about at Kelley a lot is Humanology. And it's the combination of human insights and technology working together to bring the best ideas, drive the growth for organizations. And I can't imagine a future that technology doesn't play a greater role, and our ability to really dig in to understand human behavior and human beings are coming together. So a couple questions about this. Of course, not all future predictions land to be true. We know this. If we looked at the past and people have predicted the future. Any of these, maybe you look at this list and you're like, not sure it's totally accurate. Like, I agree with this one, not sure it's totally accurate. Here's why. Like, any thoughts on this list, high level first?
I don't know.
The most honest answer that will come today.
Yes, that's it.
Yes.
Okay, I'm done. No, I don't know. I think to that point, things are changing too quickly, right? I sound really old when I say too quickly. If you look at the amount of change that happened between 1960 and 2000, It's equivalent to the amount of change that happened between 2000 and 2020. And the speed of the technology or marketing is changing at an enormous pace. So as we sit here today, yes, those may be the 5 things that they see happening in the next 3 years. You know, I looked at the list and I think fundamentally, everything there ties into the customer, right? How do we engage with the consumer? How do we provide them the information that ultimately allows them to make the right purchase decision for them? And so it's not so much the technologies or what you have there, but it is understanding the evolution of how the customer's journey is changing, right? You just think about the amount of change that has happened during COVID and how much more the consumer is engaging with digital media than back in 2019, right? We've all been huddled in our basements for far too long. And so our own behaviors of how we engage with media and engage with people has very much changed, right? It's a pleasure to sit here with 3 people in the same room because we haven't been able to do that for the past 2.5 years, right? And so as we look forward to 25 or beyond, it's about continuing to focus on the consumer and understanding how their journey is changing. Whether you're selling pharmaceuticals, whether you're selling cars, whether you're selling clothing or what have you, right? And so, yes, those are things that are kind of on our list of how do we engage with the consumers differently over the next 3 years, but you know, I should be Nostradamus if I could tell you what the hell is going to happen 3 years from now, let alone a year and a half from now.
Yeah, I'll just build on what you said, maybe put a finer point on it. The goal, right? The goal that we're all working towards is next level frictionless customer experience, seamless, frictionless customer experience. So that's what we're working towards. We know that it starts with data and analytics and insights because all of these transformative technologies that will help us get there are powered by the data. So just if I would probably reorder that to start with data.
No. That's the order. 1 through 5, no
changing. I'm changing
It's
the
not
order.
willy-nilly here.
It starts with data. We have tools, transformative technologies that will power us to deliver that next level of customer experience. And you know, I too do not read the future, but I know that the importance of customer experience, I feel confident that will not change and that will continue to be the primary goal in 2025.
I think we're all like-minded on this one. It's really getting that sacred balance of not losing touch with what ultimately we're looking to achieve. And our primary objective is to really better serve consumers and really understand their needs set and unlocked insights that we can bring forward and help differentiate our own products and brands. So, I mean, it's that coupling. That's what I like about Humanology. It's half the human insight coupled with technology and making sure that there's a lot of great advanced leading edge technology, but you got to ground it against the consumer. And that's why it's nice to see so many things in the skill set that are really consumer focused. I even think the second one, neuromarketing, and kind of that balance. There's a lot of great AI and machine learning that can kind of bring forward some of the data in intelligent and remarkable ways, but how are we going to bring in, I'll give an example in our own business, that we're doing a lot more empirographic in-home testing is much more in vogue for us than focus groups because it actually can allow you to get right with the consumer. You can, and things like eye movement, and you can even check their heart rate, their pulse. Like there's so much you can do connected to that consumer that's really now enabled because of technology.
Amazing. And it speaks actually to the research. One of the things they predicted in 2025 is what are the most important KPIs to marketing leaders at that time. And what they said is customer lifetime value. And unless you understand that full end-to-end experience of the customer and bring the data together and have you can't answer or solve for that. Customer retention was the second one. Like, how do we make sure we're not losing customers and keeping them for the future? So it really speaks to kind of the threads we're pulling together here about staying focused on the consumer. And yes, trends will come, skills will come and go, but we have to keep focused on what consumers really want and that frictionless experience, which is very cool. So I want to talk about upskilling. I think we spoke earlier about making sure our team members are curious, they have curiosity, they're asking good questions. And I think that's fundamentally at I'm willing to learn and I want to learn new things. So on your teams, what does it look like? What does upskilling look like? This list is very different from the list in 2022, 23. Do you feel everyone's open? Is it a mix of learning? Like, how does upskilling work? How do we get our team members prepared if certain things are going to change and we need different skills in the future?
I think fundamentally within the organization, there has to be a willing to invest in the people, right? If there's not, then it's very difficult to upskill, right? It is more of a, well, you do your thing and you do your thing, but can't do that during business hours because we're too busy, right? There has to be a willingness within the organization to make an investment in your team members, because I think ultimately if the company is willing to demonstrate that, then it builds a sense of loyalty between the employee and the organization. And so some of the organizations that I've worked in the past haven't been willing to make those investments. Here at Mitsubishi Motors, we are trying to embrace this methodology that we will invest in our team members. So ultimately, their skill sets get better, but also there's a greater sense of loyalty to the brand that they can continue to grow and progress in their career. So it's a much longer term career within the brand than leaving 3 years after you started.
Great.
From my perspective, I think it's never been a more exciting time to really take command of your own learning. There's just, with digital technology and readiness, more abundant opportunities. I think what you need to really consider, though, is how can you take charge of your own learning? So at Bear, we have platforms like Degreed, which is, self-training learning modules that you can take yourself. You've also got access to marketing master classes. We have academy training. You can do kind of job shadowing. There's just so many. And one key area is if you really want to stay in touch with tomorrow's skills, consider reverse mentoring. Stay in touch with somebody that's recently come out of university or college that has these skills that, I've been in business for about 25 years. That's not quite fresh anymore. So how do I stay connected through kind of embracing my own learning path and don't stop?
Yeah, I agree. I think if you want to level up your marketing organization, there's two paths. There's capability building internally with your existing team. There's also augmenting your team with outside support, whether that be new hires, whether that be working with vendors and partners to help elevate the collective capability of the team. And I would absolutely agree with you when you're talking about capability building. Yes, some of it can be driven by the organization, but it really also has to be driven by the individual who is in a continuous quest for learning. And then I guess to your point also, I would say that one of the biggest successes that we've seen is partnering experienced marketers, skilled marketers with young change makers who are innovative, who are bringing current thinking, and that opportunity to learn on a day-to-day basis is really important.
So it's almost like at an organizational level, it needs to be a cultural norm. And then we have to hire the right people who are motivated to learn. And it's just a part of who they are. That is who they are. They are learners. They love to, and nowadays learning can be done so many different ways. With YouTube and how to, you can learn almost anything. So if we can make sure our team members have that appetite and then we're culturally making that a norm within our organization, that sounds like a great kind of path to make sure that as the skills change and as the predictions are changing and, this list may be very different. It'd be fun to fast forward and see what's still here and what's not, to see some of that alignment. Very interesting. So we're going to move to just a few kind of closing questions, and then we're going to jump to a few audience questions. So one of them is, as a marketing leader, you're all very successful and accomplished. Like, if you were to give some advice to your younger self around hiring, like what advice would you give to your younger self? Chantel?
I have two.
Yes.
The first one is that I would learn not to overestimate the importance of those functional skills at the expense of alignment of values and soft skills. So that's the first one. Yes, functional skills are important, and having competency is table stakes, but having alignment of values and having someone able to work within a team environment is mission critical. So that's the first one. And the second one I alluded to earlier, it's stop looking for those marketing unicorns because they don't exist.
I agree with Chantel. No, I agree completely, right? I think far too many people that we see are specialists in one particular area, but don't have those soft skills or social skills to be able to work together as a team to bring it together, right? They may be really good at what they're doing, but we don't work in isolation. Marketing is a team environment where everybody brings their own skill set. Let's go back to soccer, right? There are offensive players and there are defensive players, and you cannot have one without the other, right? The success of the team is how both defense and offense work together in collaboration. And it's no different on a team here, right? That you have to have the ability to interact with people. And those are much more difficult skills to teach than teach the specialized skills, right? Yes, we can go out. We just finished talking about training, right? And all the resources that Bayer offers their marketing team to, develop their skills. But the ability to interact with people and communicate effectively and work together as a team and collaborate is a much more difficult skill set to train. And so can you find those people out there in the hiring that you can bring them in and develop their specialization skills there? And, eventually they become, yes, they have a wider point of view and they have different, maybe it's not a team, maybe it's a pie, right? Where you have the overall, and now they have multiple skill sets that now they have a much greater perspective on how everything works together, right? And then you can work together more collaboratively and as a team and accomplish ultimately what we want to accomplish. In our case, sell more cars.
And I've never heard a marketer say, "Oh, I love the silos we have. I love having everything in silo." And in order to overcome that, part of it is your ability to collaborate, your soft skills, your ability to develop relationships with those around you. And so I think it's like what we're hearing consistently. I don't know if you have any thoughts as well, Kent.
Yeah, I'll give some generic advice I got at a young stage in my career is that if you're a new marketer, mid-20s, and you're looking to retire at 65, that's 40 years out. So this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So pace yourself and don't be intimidated. So we've been discussing, the 8 skills of today and the 5 skills of tomorrow, and those are only hard skills. And you've got soft skills of leadership and teamwork and collaboration and growth mindset and all of these things you need to do. Just slow down, take a deep breath, and realize you're not going to do it all. So kind of just prioritize what you're good at and learn how to ask for help. As Steve's been saying, I don't know is a perfectly explainable area, but give yourself the right time and space and you can learn it, and think about what direct capabilities you have that the organization has in demand. And there's that give and take of what you bring and what you need. And if you're constantly thinking of it on that terms, I think the recipe success will follow.
I want to talk now about the economic uncertainty of 2023. So just because it's hot button, everybody's we've seen the tech layoffs. I think one of the websites reports 120,000 employees were laid off in 2022. There's certainly companies who are doing really well, but has economic uncertainty changed any of your hiring needs, or maybe how you're thinking about hiring next year? Has anything changed at all, or is it like status quo? We're gonna keep moving forward. Any thoughts?
I think if you're looking at something that's going to be in market for 6 months, if you have the right value proposition with consumers and you're confident in how your brand is positioned, that it really delivers great utility and benefit to consumers, then you shouldn't be overly concerned with, hiring differently or whatever. But having said that, you can't be complacent or just disregard what's there. So I think for me, it's really all about consumer value in the moment. And do you have the right pricing? Do you understand elasticities? And do you understand your target audience? And if you have the right value proposition, I think it's somewhat insular.
So marketing, hiring, no real effect?
Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah, not for us. I would say it's mostly business as usual because we've always hired conservatively and somewhat cautiously. It's part of what we do. I would say the only area that we continue to hire aggressively and perhaps over hire in is in those junior development opportunities where we can bring people into our organization, where we can help them build their career, develop, and then of course collaborate with those experienced marketing professionals is so important to us that we continue to hire aggressively in that area.
From a Mitsubishi Motors perspective, when the pandemic first hit, that's where our adjustments were made from what our strategy was of how we were going to go to market and the medium in which, or the mediums which we would use. And so that adjustment, 2 years ago has kind of reset what strategically are our focal points for the years to come. And so from a hiring perspective, no, in actual fact, we're looking to expand our team because we've been able to identify where some of the areas of opportunity are for us to build better relationships with consumers, et cetera, and to become more efficient and more effective when we go to market. And so, yes, there's always uncertainty, but if you have the right plan in place for the long run, then you have to have the people there to be able to execute it. And we can't wait until, Josiah, you talked about the importance of retention from a customer retention and loyalty from a customer perspective. Can't wait until, the next, uptick in the economy to then I need to put the actions in place so we can begin to build that relationship with the consumers that will benefit us 3-4 years from now.
Amazing. So we're going to jump a couple audience questions and then wrap. So here's what we have. We have a kind of a fill in the blank. So when you find a marketer who does blank well, hold on to them. So what is the thing? When you find a marketer who does well, hold on to them. What comes to mind with that kind of question?
When you find a marketer who can find simplicity on the far side of complexity, hold on to them.
Love it.
Challenge the status quo.
If you have a marketer that asks great questions and isn't overly fussed with always having the right answers, hold on to them.
That was a great audience question. Holy cow. Well done. Okay, so hypothetical. Let's say if there's no budget for future hires, so we're not going to increase headcount, where should a marketing leader put their professional development time to be most effective in building the brand? Or where might they pull back? So we can't hire people, but we're going to develop them. What's the professional development time going to go to?
I would take a moment to reflect on what's available that has no or low cost. Like we've talked a lot about this, but there are some, fantastic TED Talks. There's Zoom conferences you can take part in. So again, for me, it's like finding the right self-development plan and looking at the value you have that can reciprocate by staying connected through, marketing associations or LinkedIn, just to basically look at idea exchange. There's a lot of resource and knowledge out there that really doesn't cost much.
Great.
I think, Kent mentioned it earlier, right? We do not take advantage of mentoring within organizations. And, that is something that doesn't cost a lot of money. Yes, it takes some time, but I think from a development perspective, you can continue to, improve your employees or your team's knowledge, the way that they look at things, and maybe a better understanding of the business just by investing in, a mentoring program.
That's great. Okay, we're going to jump. Final question. So if I'm trying to convince executives about not pulling back marketing spend in 2023 because they have a bit of fear for sort of recession. Like, what should I communicate, or how should I present a case, or how should I kind of protect that marketing spend because I think it's important? What's any thoughts on what that case or how you would talk to the executive who wants to pull back?
Use the data to demonstrate the benefit that marketing has. And so to expand on that a little, we partnered with one of our key partners, Kantar, and looked at how our media was being spent. And we're able to identify whether it was brand advertising or retail advertising and the type of medium and that we were using, what that actually contributed to a sales perspective. And so what the relationship was, we talked a little bit earlier about understanding the full funnel, and by us investing the money from a marketing perspective, we were able to sell these many more additional vehicles. And so now all of a sudden, rather than the executives looking at marketing as simply a cost center, now it's an opportunity to be able to demonstrate by making further investments in marketing that will inevitably help in the sale of more vehicles.
That's great.
I'd say from my perspective, the VP of Finance or CFO, C-suite's P&L is always going to trump your rationale as to why you should invest in consumers. But don't be too rattled by that, because I find if you can not lose control of the conversation to show an openness, that you will be as efficient as possible and use all of the enormous access to resources you have by way of marketing mix analysis and zero-based budgeting, and really discern between the nice to haves from the necessities of what really is driving the brand and keeping the value going, then I think in my experiences, you'll go further to kind of protect budgets and make sure that you're continuing to invest in the consumer.
Yeah, and the final thing that I would add is that, of course, every marketer is going to be faced with budget cuts at some point in time, and that's just a reality. I would encourage us all to really try and take a long-term view of marketing. Marketing has a compounding effect, and sometimes by making those dramatic cuts in the short term, it's we shoot ourselves in the foot for the longer term view. So I think that's the conversation that has to happen with the CFO to create that rationale for not completely devastating our marketing budget with a short term view.
Amazing. That's a wrap. Honestly, thank you so much, Steve, Chantel, and Kent, for joining us on the panel, and audience. Thanks for tuning in. Tons of value in this. Really appreciate it. And maybe we'll talk about it again one day and compare notes. Did the 2025 actually happen or not? So
let me write that down.
Put it in your calendar.
Right or
the
wrong?
18th of November, 2025.
I'll send out a calendar invite so everyone is ready. Thank you so much.